welcome to the first episode of Fast Lane. I am your host, Messi Marimbe, and today we are going to be talking about the public transport associations in Zimbabwe. We're going to get an in-depth look on how these associations run, how they impact the general Zimbabwean, and if you and I are safe in these combis. And in the house today, we have Gako and Zudak to give us an explanation or nipudziro kyokuti what is going on in terms of our transportations in Zimbabwe. Gentlemen, welcome to the show, and we are going to start with Gako. Can you please introduce yourself and what it is you do?
Inviting us. My name is Monica Tairo. I'm the chairman of Greater Harare Association of Commuter Members Operators GACO. It's a membership organization for operators who own combis in Harare, and the combis ply Harare suburban routes and the towns and cities around Harare.
Okay. And Zudak?
Naitabasa Tetemis Kutikoga Zakari, the Kamirida Zudak Association. The association Makombi, Takura Vanu, Ugutare Harare. In fact, we are nationwide.
Okay. So these two fine gentlemen here are going to be here tichipakurirwa, tichibvunza mvunzo yakawanda wanda, tichinakirwa zvedu. All right. So nyaya yedu mamirira yakaita is we want to look at the effectiveness and the duties of the public transportation associations in Zimbabwe, and whether or not they're doing a good job or they're just adding insult to the current injury that the public transportation sector is currently going on in Zimbabwe. So let's start by fully explaining what the role of the public transportation associations in the country, and with an aid of probably examples to indicate where they have positively intervened to produce the required positive results. So to get started, let's start with Zudak. Can you give us, in your perspective, what the role of the public transportation association in your books is?
Ndofunga tikatarisa mashure tisati tatanganya dzema-association makombi akanga achingofamba asina kuti mumwe achingoti panopiwa pensheni yake otenga kombi, but nokuburikidza nekukumbira kwatakaita mutungamiri wenyika wakatitendera kuti makombi ngaadzoti ari mu-association. Chinhu chatakaita ndechekuti kana tiri mu-association tine tarisiro yekuti motokari hadzichaite njake but naizvozvo but tine dambudziko hombe ratinaro as ma-association. Zviro kwazvo ndopfungwa dzatanga tinadzo kuti zvinhu zvedu tizvistabilize zviite one order, but nokuda kwokuti as we speak hatina SI inotibatsira kuti tuve ne-self-regulatory.
All right, tikubate papap. We want this kuti zvive zvinonzwisisika as much as possible. So what is an SI?
SI is a statutory instrument inotipa simba as an association. So that kuti kana tichita kuti Sudak iri kusevhisa mabvukutafara, right? Inenge ane simba yekuti inomonitor mafambiro anenge achiitwa nemotokari dzinoenda kumabvukutafara. Kana vachipa mafines ma-operators or ma-drivers, they have to punish them. Zvisinei ne-police enforcement. Of course, Ministry of Transport, they are trying their best kuti haugoni kutora road permit usiri mu-association. But tatarisa zvikuitika ndezvokuti munhu anogona kupinda kuzuda kana kupinda kugako, right? For the sake yekuti aida kunotora mapapers ake Ministry of Transport, soon angova nemapapers hapana mutemo unomumanikidza kuramba ari mu-association. You can move out to nobody ari kumusvikasvika.
Okay.
That's where the problem is.
I understand, Kuti, you most probably are facing the same thing as they are. How is it affecting you in terms of business and also conducting yourselves professionally?
Yeah, it does affect us because at the end of the day, we are now competing with the cooperators and the pirate taxis that are not legally registered. When ourselves, our main objective is to bring order in the sector. So we become outnumbered. As it stands, the statistics are that there are over 16,000 combis in Arai, but only 4,000 are registered, which means all the chaos that is happening is coming from 12,000 combis. And also, like what Mr. Zizega said, if one gets an operator's license or a permit to operate within an association, as soon as he gets it, it's done. So you end up not being able to do proper self-regulation, do proper disciplinary procedures against the offending combis or offending crew. You also will become handicapped in terms of achieving your objectives, of which our main objectives is to bring order in the public transport sector, to operate within the terms of the laws and the acts of parliament that are there in regulating public transport.
The fraction itself inongokudza kuti vari kudominata ndewapi 12,000 unregistered.
Yeah, definitely it's not the equation.
And mazvona saka zvikutoratidza kuti takatogarwa matunduru nechekare. Ndo patiri kuchema kuti pataurwa kuti before registration and after registration ngatiwane tiine simba racho rokuti kana tapiwa ruti isusu toita kuti ndeyedu hatidi kuona motokari ichifamba. For example, tikuda kutaura zvinhu zvekusouth africa. Do you know to South Africa ukatakura even a private car, mota yeassociation inogona kukuregedza uchifamba, but ichiziva kuti mari iyoyo pauri unosvika padestiny vanokutaura kuti unza mari yedu haisi yako, hakutenderwi kutakurwa nemotokari isiri registered. Saka ndo zvinhu zvatiri kuchemera munhu dai zvikaita saizvozvo, then we are home and dry. Okay. Government zvinovarerutsira basa. Why? Nokuda kwokuti the moment motokari yeZodaki, even mota yeGAP yapara mhosva, the government haina basa, police haina basa kusvika kumhaidzana nemotokari iyoyo. Chavo kungoraisa a call kuGAP, motokari yako yakati yaita zvakati, we need it here. Simple, totora motokari toiendesa kupolice. Mota dziri muassociation dzine mafleet numbers. So it's easy to identify kuti pane motokari yakati, crew yakati yandibata rafu yaenda nemari yangu. So simbo ungofona kuassociation. The association vanofonera muridzi wemotokari takutodaidza the crew panzvimbo, iwe wotoya panzvimbo, munhu wotobatsirika, zvofamba zvakanaka. Ofuchi ndo zvinhu zvatikutarisa kuti zvinofanira kuramba zvichiitika, but nekuda kwokuti sezvataurwa kuti mota zhinji hadzisi muassociation. So you end up the cry by nowhere mind kuti vanongozi makombi.
these bona fide associations? Because for me sika ininde njungoona stick ndobva ndatoti saka kombi bo ndobva ndatopinda ndazosvika manje kwandiri kuenda kuDZ ndobva ndanoti zvandava kuitwa manama aya mawanaya and handisisina kwokuita seiko kunitaura. So how is a regular passenger or a regular traveler supposed to identify the difference between these two associations?
Ndofunga zvinhu zviri nyore. Isusu sema-association chinhu chatinokurudzira ndechekuti motokari yeassociation inoshandira iri within the ranks. MuHarare tine 5 marine, which is Market Square, Copacabana, Resende Street, Church Office for the street. Ndo marine. Ukaona motokari dzichitakurira outside that box, zvikureva kuti motokari yatova pamushikashika.
Okay.
Inenge iri pamushikashika. Of course weboti macruise vanoita musikanzi angave kuzodhaga angave kugako, whatever it is, unogona kuvaona vari pamushikashika. But is sema-association tikatokukuona uri pamushikashika, you're going to pay a fine.
But there comes manje a problem whereby ndaenda kuna 4th hakuna makombi kumba kwangu, ndaenda kukwese kwamataura hakuna makombi kumba kwangu. So what am I supposed to do? Because the only place I can find is those undistinguished. So what is a regular passenger supposed to do, or what can associations do to make sure that such a situation can't happen?
Yeah, we are continuously engaging as associations with the council so that they provide the rents, they provide the loading space for new locations and other established locations that didn't have loading places within the existing designated ranks. The other approach that we are taking is to say to council, some of these street ranks have been operating for over 10-12 years now. That's where some of the passengers are used, and also because our space in the designated ranks is becoming smaller and smaller as we are aware, the population is continuously growing, both vehicular and human population. It's growing consistently. So we are saying those ranks and those streets should now be regularized into a properly designated ranks, so that there is no cat and mouse chases in those particular streets. Once they are designated, then passengers can freely, without risking their lives, board at those areas. But in the first place, we encourage those registered combis to operate from within ranks, because a rank is much safer for the passenger than out there in the street, because anything can happen in the street at any time. So we are also engaging council to say, even the ranks, we will also find unregistered combis in the ranks. So they must make sure that they put in place their traffic enforcement and municipal police within their ranks. Especially now that they've taken over the ranks, they are now charging entry fees into the rank. So as they are charging entry fees, they also need to screen registered vehicles against unregistered vehicles. They can't just get money from unregistered vehicles to enter the rank simply because they've paid. Also need to keep the law as we collect money for those vehicles entering into the rank.
All right. Now, the Minister of Transport and Infrastructure Development, Honorable Minister Felix Mona, is on record saying it is now mandatory for that all public transport operators must belong to a public transport association for accountability purposes. What are you doing as associations to complement government efforts on this positive stance?
Yeah, tinotenda zvikuru nokuda kuti Mr. Mona honorable Mona vachitaura kudaro kuti dambudziko riri kuitika ndiri kudai izvi vari kuisa that effort sekutaura kwandamboita mumashure kuti vari kusunga kuti hakuna munhu anotora permit, right, ku-RMT kusina kupinda mu-association. The problem is hatina that statutory instrument. Noti kana pane statutory instrument waamutemo. Saka kana tisati tawana statutory instrument hatina chinhu chiri kutipa simba as associations.
Okay, ndiri kubate muromo ipapo. You matipa procedure yokuwana kuti uwane kufamba and matitsamba. Is this a permit? Is this a license? And if so, durability yacho yakamira sei? Pane some form of renewal here yokukoti munhu anozonzi ngaadzokere kuZUDAC azonyorerwa zveimwe tsamba yokuratidza kuti he is still operating.
Yeah. Pamatsamba tinonyora like, for example, permit approval from the council is 1 year.
All right.
Permit from the RMT is 1 year. So munhu anouya otora ojoin association, right? Is now a member. Oita ma-requirements ese mapapers ari anditi momunyorera tsamba. No, this is our member. Right? Opa haenda kunopiwa mapapers ake VAT zvese opedza motokari yake inenge compliant according to statutory instrument of the road act and it means compliant.
All right, but then I have another question now. Yokuti antimati it's 1 year anditika.
Yeah.
Saka inini semunhu anga ari mu-association for that 1 year but not complying, how come ndiri kunorenewa next year?
Yeah, pakurenewa either munhu iye anodzokazve kana kuti anoenda kune imwe new association ndokuwanda kwakuzoita ma-association mamwe asina order yayo. Then also to add on issue yema-street ranks, we are not saying every other street rank iri kushandiswa semushikashika zviri illegal inofanira kuve regularized into a designated loading zone, but we are saying council must look at strategically ma-streets anofanira kuitwa regularize, not every other street. So if they do that, it will also lessen pressure on the shortage of space ranks, whilst they also collect revenue in those strategic streets that they will have regulated into proper street ranks. Then on the issue of renewal, a council must come up with a bylaw, or that statutory instrument can also include that, to say in Harare we've got so many combis, in Bulawayo we've got so many combis, but they have only 5 associations that are registered. Anyone operating outside those 5 associations, it means they are operating illegally. They must also recognize and register proper and bona fide associations in Harare, not to leave it as a Jack and Jill situation. That's where many syndicates are being created, just to perpetuate disorder, like I alluded to before. Is the lack of statutory instrument and lack of registration of those regulated associations or bona fide associations that is continuously creating the disorder that we are witnessing now.
All right. Whose responsibility is it really to ensure that the adherence and compliance of the gazetted laws dealing with public transportation operators is fully followed?
Kana kwaiswa mtemo, the enforcer is the ZRP. Ndo wanafana kuenforcer kuti zvinhu zvakataurwa zviri pamutemo zvikutedzwa. So chikuitika transport sector ndo pati kuchemera kuti SI as long isipo police haina simba rikumhanyidzana kuti hatina statutory instrument inotaura kuti uyu ndiye anofanira kunge achitakura vanhu uyu haafanira kutakura vanhu. Anomazvona?
Yes.
So we cannot blame the police, because police anongoti anoti guys toshanda nemi zvakanaka, tinogara ma-meetings tichatikungoshuvira kuti ngatifambiwo zvakanaka mugwagwa.
I am sure takambozviona izvi zvokuti kombi ndo inoita kana kuchinaya boys, because chero pavement anofamba. ndo zvatiri kubvunza kuti mwana wanu uyu anorohwa nani mwana uyu ndo zvatiri kubvunza.
As we said at the beginning, the objective of associations is to bring order in the sector. So as associations, we self-regulate. We beat our own children before we ask the bigger parent to deal with those that would have failed to discipline. So initial disciplinary procedures are done at association level so that we follow up on our initial objective of self-regulation. So once we are registered as an association, we must make sure our own combis, our own crews and our own operators are operating in terms of the law. Their combis are compliant in terms of all the paperwork. The drivers are also compliant in terms of all the paperwork that is required for one to operate a public transport vehicle. So we will not shift the blame. The blame is on us. For those combis that are within us, operating within us, they should operate within the strict terms and conditions and the code of conduct of operating within that particular association.
Will there be order in the public transport sector in Harare in our lifetime?
Yeah. Order chinhu chisingatombonetsi. Once tafambisa nyaya yekuti mutemo wapo kuti ukaonekwa motokari isiri muassociation kana ichitenherwa mota ichatenherwa until further notice kana kuti pazotorwa mamwe matano ari tough. Zvikadaro then vanhu vanouya kumaassociation, then it's easy kuti maassociation achimonita kuona kuti mota dzikufamba zvakanaka, kana even mapatrol officers tinogona kuemploya kuti road yechitungisa ine mapatrol officers ari kuona kuti mota dzemaassociation dzikufamba here zvakanaka. But for now you cannot do that.
All right, your final words before we let you go, sir.
Yeah, I think as alluded to by Mr. Chidzenga, we need to work together as associations, council, the therapy and the government ministries to ensure there is order in our sector. We need to ensure there is road safety for passengers, for well-being of passengers. One person dying is one person too many. We need to preserve lives as public transport operators, and to do that there need to be compliance and there need to be enforcement of those who are not complying with the law.
Well, you heard it yourselves, ladies and gentlemen. Machines Gwira, from statutory instruments requests to pleading with the public drivers and conductors. Be safe on the road. Take care of yourself. Take care of the person next to you. And till we meet again, happy driving and happy traveling.